In October 2006, the first volume of a new comic series called The Boys came out, and it amassed a total of 72 issues before ending in November 2012. During that time, the comic series also gained a big following, and in 2008 it was greenlit to receive feature-length film trilogy that didn't end up becoming reality due to creative differences. Years later, said comic series ended up receiving a TV series in 2019 developed by Eric Kripke for Amazon Prime Video. This show very quickly garnered a massive audience. It was a very refreshing take on superheroes that also served as a political satire. It presented superheroes in a weirdly realistic way. This universe almost felt like our world that we live in, just with the slight addition of superpowers. That allowed the writers of the show to commit to very effective caricatures of how the society that we live in works, and also how power can get into people's heads. The first episode came out July 26th, 2019 to great reviews, and altogether the first 3 seasons were very well received, and the fandom of The Boys only continued to grow, which resulted in a spin-off of it called Gen V, officially arriving to Prime Video 2023, as well as an adult animated series called Diabolical, which came out in 2022. However, The Boys still remained the main event of this franchise. Season 4 came out to some pretty okay reviews, and then finally this year we saw the arrival of the final season of The Boys, which wasn't as positively received. A lot of criticism towards the show arose specifically this season. That included the misuse, or just in general the lack of usage of certain characters, bringing back characters that had no reason to be there, running out of jokes, using the season to market another spin-off, lackluster finale, weird plot, as well as some actors and their past. There was a lot of criticism. And I have been watching. I've been seated for The Boys basically since season 1 premiered, and I feel quite passionate about this franchise, so I'm honestly very excited to do this video. I want to talk about the final season of The Boys and give you my full thoughts on each of the episodes, what it all means for the future of this franchise, and also discuss most of the things that were brought against this final season and decide whether I agree with them or not. So let's do it, blokes. Hello, my name is Freyr. I'm your favorite local voice grellman and a Polish sociology student, and welcome to my little corner of the internet where I discuss all forms of popular media that interest me, whether that's books, TV shows, films, or music. Today, as I already specified in the pretty long intro, I will be diving into the final season of The Boys, giving you my full thoughts, and how it's going to work is, first, we're going to go into the season 5 recap. We're going to talk about each episode individually. I'm going to do like a quick synopsis of each episode, and then I'm going to give you my bullet points of what I thought about each of them, whether I liked them or not, what sort of things I might have liked about them too. And then in the probably longer section, I'm going to address all of the criticism that was brought against the show this season. And I mean, there is a lot of stuff that was said during the airing of season 5, so I'm very, very excited to have these conversations. Now, this video is obviously here for me to, speak my truth, share my opinions with you guys, but I'm also very interested to hear what you guys think about this season of The Boys, or just in general The Boys franchise altogether. So if you have any thoughts, any critique towards the show, please make sure to leave it in the comments down below. I will definitely be reading those comments, and I'm very, very excited for the discussions that we could have here. But before I get into the season 5 recap, I would quickly like to remind you that you can always subscribe to the channel, which most of you aren't subscribed, so that makes me very sad, and I would appreciate if you did subscribe. And aside from that, if you've already done that, you can always share this video, you can like it, you can comment down below your thoughts, and also you can hype it. And if you want to support me on other platforms, you can also follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and a plethora of other platforms. I'm kind of everywhere. But before we get into the actual yapping, spoiler alert is in full effect, which I think is kind of obvious, but I'm just gonna say it so that no one gets upset, Anyway, let's talk about season 5 and the 8 episodes that it consisted of.
When they're apart, they're absolute fucking rubbish. But you put them together, they're the goddamn fucking Spice Girls.
The first episode of the season is called 15 Inches of Sheer Dynamite. The episode picks up exactly 1 year later, after Homelander has basically gained control over the United States. Starlight leaks the Flight 37 video, supposed to damage Homelander's reputation, but it very quickly gets labeled as AI content by Sage. That is kind of hilarious. Ashley is now a vice president of the United States as well as a soup. Homelander forces Sage to leak the information that Huey, and Frenchie will be executed in hopes to draw the attention of Starlight. Homelander waits at the so-called Freedom Camp for Butcher to come rescue the boys in captivity. Butcher, Annie, and Kimiko decide to infiltrate the camp and ask help from A-Train, who refuses. In the camp, Annie creates a distraction in probably the coolest display of her powers in the entire show, and that allows the group to scatter around. A-Train intervenes when Homelander tries to kill Huey and rescues him, allowing the rest of the boys to run. A-Train is then killed by Homelander after insulting his fragile ego. As a first episode to the season, I actually really liked it. I think it kicks off the season in a very good way. I enjoyed it even though it was immediately showing signs of imperfection. First things first, A-Train immediately dying despite being one of the most interesting soups in the entire show was a massive red flag for me. I really liked A-Train and I kind of wanted more of him this season. I was actually hoping for that, but he ends up not really doing anything because he just dies. I mean, granted, he's the reason why we even have a plot because he saves the boys, right? But I think he could have stuck around a little longer. I mean, we'll talk about it more in the next section about like the characters that the writers chose to keep around this season versus the ones that were cut. And I mean, I do think that some very weird choices were made in that regard. But speaking of weird choices, Kimiko. Man, how they've butchered my girl this season. Kimiko has been my favorite character in The Boys, period. Since the beginning, since I first saw her on the screen, I was like, yeah, this is gonna be my favorite character in this show. So you can imagine how painful of an experience watching season 5 was as a Kimiko stan, especially after that last scene in season 4 when she finally speaks up for the first time and and then that is followed up by this. She has probably the coolest arc of any character in this show. All of that growth that she does throughout the first 4 seasons is basically thrown out the window so that they can make her into a comic relief character who constantly jokes about sex. The moment she finally gets to speak in the show, all she does is joke about sex. That's all she fucking does. Now, I don't think she gets completely ruined this season because I actually think the further we go in the season, the better she gets. But it never reaches the same peaks that we saw in the earlier seasons, you know? But I mean, these few first episodes were especially rough to me, especially as a Kimiko stan. Again, I love Kimiko, my favorite character in the entire show. And they just did her like, oh my God, oh man. Homelander immediately starts the season being an absolute menace. And I love it. I mean, he is such an effective villain. I think Anthony Starr as Homelander is one of the best casting decisions ever made. Even this season, when Homelander's writing gets a little weird in places, it very much comes off the rails in a few different places. He still delivers insane performances. He really is like the #1 highlight of the show for me. And also the memes he created. Thank you for your service. The second episode is called Teenage Kicks. Butcher leads the boys into a laboratory that he runs with Dr. Samir Shah, to whom he also lied about Victoria Newman's death. They make up a plan to test the virus on a member of Teenage Kicks who is called Rock Hard. And whilst they do that, Homelander awakens Soldier Boy. And this is where the season kind of goes off the rails. Soldier Boy gets a task from Homelander. He has to find Butcher in exchange for clearing his name. He finds Huey, he finds Butcher and Kimiko on their way to the Teenage Kicks' home. And Frenchie also releases the virus that kills Jetstreak, Rockheart, and Soldier Boy. Some of these names I still cannot quite remember, like, especially, I mean, these Teenage Kicks members, because they're so irrelevant this season. After that, we see a new scene of Ashley that reveals what her power actually is. The back of Ashley's head now also has another face, which is called Bashley, and that allows her to read minds. After Vault scientists carry Soldier Boy's body, he suddenly awakens. I will say this episode is probably one of the better episodes of the season. One of my favorite parts of the season, just in general, is definitely Ashley. Giving her powers in general was a great idea, but specifically giving her powers that reflect her anxiety so much to the point that she grows a face on the back of her head is kind of insane. I love when characters get like very unhinged powers like that. I think she is probably the best example of that. Also, I mean, Colby Menifee has been eating in this role for a while now, but this season, she really brought her A game. And I mean, she's also undoubtedly the funniest character in this entire season. They give some jokes to some other characters that are not really that well executed, but Colby Menifee's charisma, man, that she could do anything really. Teenage kicks, don't care. They are not really that important this season. I actually was kind of delusional enough to think that their introduction would have something to do with possibly the future appearances of Gen V characters, which didn't happen. I mean, it made sense in my head. It just was never really going to be reality, I guess. I will say though, the moments between MM and Countess Crow were very, very sweet. MM truly is like one of the best people in this show. No wonder Ryan ends up living with him. And I mean, Soldier Boy, I'm gonna just say this. I'm gonna put a pause on the Soldier Boy discussion because he's gonna be very relevant in the second part of this video. So we're gonna talk about him there, but trust, I do have opinions. Episode 3 is titled Every One of You Sons of Bitches. Soldier Boy is officially introduced to the Seven, and Sage reveals to Homelander that V1 in Soldier Boy's blood gives him immortality, and that leads Homelander to become fixated with the idea of getting the V1 himself. With Stan Edgar's help, the boys locate a base where V1 may be hidden. Butcher tries to convince Ryan to help him kill Homelander with the virus, even if Ryan dies in the process. Zoe finds her father, Samir. They destroy all virus samples in the boys' keeping before fleeing. A team of Supes breaks into Stan Edgar's bunker and capture Edgar. Ryan confronts Homelander and gets brutally beaten by him. And then Butcher comes across a brutally beaten up Ryan. This episode was very good in my opinion. It was definitely one of the best ones of the season. I think having an episode focused mostly on the guilt of killing people as well as presenting the consequences for their children was pretty well done. I mean, we see that through the lenses of Zoe and through Maverick, and one could maybe even argue Ryan as well. The race for V1, at least to me at first, was kind of interesting actually, and I think seeing more of Soldier Boy's dynamic with Homelander was also fun, even though this season it gets extremely confusing. That scene of Ryan getting beaten up though that was tough to watch. And I'm saying that even for like the standard of the boys, this show is very gory, it's very brutal, but to see a father beat up his son like that was somehow even more disturbing. The 4th episode is titled King of Hell. Homelander develops a god complex because why the hell not? The boys travel to Fort Harmony searching for V1. Frenchie discovers an airborne toxoplasmosis that provokes intense aggression in everyone except him because he used to take drugs. After learning that the Soup bomb site has stolen all the V1 vials, the team turns on each other. Homelander and Soldier Boy later arrive at the facility looking for the V1 and argue, and that all ends when Homelander is trapped by Soldier Boy inside a chamber filled with enriched uranium. Frenchie finds the source of the toxoplasmosis, which is a mutated figure whom Soldier Boy recognizes as Quinn. Soldier Boy then, provoked by Frenchie, kills Quinn and restores everything to normal. After reconciling with her father, Annie reunites with Huey. And then the episode ends with O-Father publicly declaring the Democratic Church of America and naming Homelander as the prophet of the Lord. This episode is a bit of a mixed bag for me, honestly. The relationship of Soldier Boy and Homelander basically keeps on changing every episode. In the previous episode, you had Soldier Boy making it clear that he doesn't like Homelander, but Homelander clearly still seeking his approval. Here, Soldier Boy just fully traps him in that uranium compartment and tells him that he doesn't want Homelander to get the V1. Then they work together to get the information out of bomb site. He ends up giving him the V1. Then Homelander just puts him back in the freezer. Like, what is going on? Every episode, it's a different relationship. I actually really enjoyed Annie's subplot this episode. It kind of reminded me of that subplot in X-Men 2, you know, where they visit Bobby's home, and there's that entire conversation about like, have you tried not being a mutant? And then you get Bobby's ugly brother calling the cops on him. See, these two subplots both have brothers who fell for propaganda. Although this one, unlike the X-Men 2 one, ends well for Annie and for the family because they actually reconcile and the brother kind of ends up coming out normal out of this experience. Also, this episode, we are finally starting to see more and more of Oh Father, and I will say he was easily one of the most interesting additions to the season. I think it's very risky to introduce a new villain in your final season, but Hugh really works for me until the final episode where it gets a little... We'll get there. A corrupt religious preacher is already, in my opinion, a great idea, but what they do with him and how even Firecracker can see that this is a betrayal of her faith, but he still goes along with it. Like, I mean, a lot of religious figures nowadays aren't that different from Oh Father. And I mean, also having David Diggs in this role, like, duh, of course he's gonna sing. Obviously, how could you like not use that talent? That song is genuinely so good. I need it on Spotify. Actually, I should check whether it is on Spotify or not. I would say, though, the timing of this episode, as well as the previous one, was very funny because I believe that this was around the time that Trump posted that AI video of himself as God, and the jokes about the boys' riders got really, really funny around that time because they just fully predicted that. The 5th episode is called One Shots. Firecracker is asked by her former reverend to help after his church is vandalized by a Homelander fan. When the church is raided again, she betrays him on live TV. Noir tries to join a theater group, so the Deep kills his play director. As the boys develop the virus, Butcher finally says that he will let Annie and Kimiko take the V1 when found. Sage asks Ashley for help to stop Homelander from obtaining the V1, so he cannot prevent her plans for Supes and humans to all just basically kill each other. Homelander and Soldier Boy interrogate Edgar, who points them to Mr. Marathon in Los Angeles. Marathon tries to turn Soldier Boy against Homelander after Mall Chemical attacks him, but Soldier Boy refuses and kills Mall Chemical. Marathon then chases him, accidentally killing his celebrity friends in the process, which was just such a weird sequence, honestly. Soldier Boy then defeats and interrogates Marathon, who is later killed by Homelander. After learning Firecracker has doubts about his divinity, Homelander kills her. This episode was a lot, but it was probably my favorite episode of the entire season. I just love perspective episodes. It's just everything to me. Like, that is always so cool to see. Firecracker has always been a bit of a weird character for me, but this season just really made me appreciate her a lot. She's corrupt, and obviously she's a direct satire of a female conservative podcaster, but it's just so well done. And also doesn't hurt that she's played by Valerie Curie, who's just insane in this role. Her death was honestly quite sad, even though obviously she had it coming. It was finally starting to get to her that all of this was wrong. This show continues to make fun out of religion, specifically Christianity, but it also has moments where it shows religion in a bit of a good light. It can point you towards the things that are really important, and it can also help a person in realizing that something is wrong. I'm not religious whatsoever, but I think this commentary is actually quite good. The Supernatural reunion was definitely fun for some. I'm gonna be brave here. I have not seen Supernatural. I know. I'm like 15 years late to the party. I have not seen it. I'm so sorry. I am planning to watch it. It's just every single time I thought, hey, I should probably watch Supernatural for the first time, another show would start premiering and I'd be like, okay, so I have to watch this now. And then I would forget and I would just put it off. I will watch it over the summer. I promise you. Apparently, it's not worth watching all of it because from what I know, it's like seasons 1 through 5 are like the good seasons. And then the rest was basically ordered because they wanted more episodes and they wanted to profit off of it. So the entire story just doesn't make sense. I think that's what I've heard from some of my friends who have watched Supernatural. I will watch it, I promise. So yeah, personally, this reunion for me was not an event whatsoever. And then after watching the episode, I looked on Twitter and everybody was just freaking out about this. And I was like, am I missing something? And then I Googled who was in that scene. I was like, oh, Now it makes sense. But moving on, Sage and her plan is kind of meh, really. I get it. She's a nihilistic villain, but it's just a bit underwhelming, especially for Sage. Like, that's just kind of a weird choice, a weird route to go for, in my opinion, but whatever. Aside from that, though, I really, really love her this season. Oh, and also the Deep doing all of that and then being surprised about what Noir did was kind of funny, because, like, were you seriously expecting Noir to just sit there and get over it? Like, I mean, even though I think Noir definitely pushed it too far, it was quite insane what he did, but more on that later. Altogether, though, this whole argument, this whole conflict is basically pointless. The Deep is a character that just kind of sits there this entire season. He doesn't do anything. He isn't important to any story. Literally, no, actually, I don't think he does anything this season that would warrant me caring about him. So they just introduced this conflict for him. It just feels so random and forced. I don't like it. The 6th episode is called Though the Heavens Fall. The Deep records a promotional video for Vaught's new oil pipeline, promising that it will be super good, totally not bad for the fish. However, Noir sabotages that pipeline and it causes a massive oil spill that devastates the marine life. Deep, after this, kills Noir with a cable. Meanwhile, Sage incapacitates Ashley and has Bashley read Soldier Boy's mind. Sage leaves after learning about Soldier Boy having a lead on V1. Once the boys produce more virus, Huey and Annie attempt to plant it at one of Homelander's churches, but Father catches them in the act. The boys visit Golden Geisha, Bombsight's former lover, and they use her as bait with Sage's assistance. When Bombsight arrives to rescue her, he is ambushed by Soldier Boy, but Bombsight later gives Soldier Boy the V1 that he wanted in exchange for the latter depriving him of his powers and immortality. Despite Sage's predictions, Soldier Boy hands over the V1 to Homelander, who injects himself with it. And it all happens as the boys watch in horror. This episode was great, and it also spawned a ship that since then has been quite popular on AR3, which is of course Bombsight and Soldier Boy. Because really, that scene had no business being this gay-coded. This is the episode where Kimiko actually gets to be more than just a sex joke generator, and we see her have a quite interesting dynamic with Golden Geisha. What I very much didn't love, though, was the way Noir went out. Because what do you mean the Deep choked him with a cable? And it actually worked. Like, we've seen this guy in fights before. There's no way that was enough to kill him. Also here, I have to mention, I guess, Soldier Boy has no interactions with Noir this season, despite these two having a lot of history together. So why is that? Homelander getting the V1 is a dramatic turning point. It really does give this season more stakes, which previously it had, but they weren't set up too well, in my opinion. Although this changed right before the finale, when all of the plot arcs this season are kind of underdeveloped, left me worried for how the last 2 episodes would turn out to be. And speaking of, the 7th episode is called The Frenchman, the Female, and the Man Called Mother's Milk. Homelander kills the president, he dissolves the Seven, and prepares to announce himself as a god to the country. After Soldier Boy tells him he plans on leaving, Homelander chokes him and puts him back in his freezer. Blamed by all marine life for the pipeline disaster, the Deep is exiled from the sea. Upon learning of suspicious activity involving Father at one of his churches, the boys go there to investigate. Frenchie is tasked with recreating Soldier Boy's power neutralizing ability in Kimiko. Butcher and Huey are later captured by Synapse. The two escape when Butcher kills Synapse after Huey distracted him. Annie and MM save a test audience from being executed for their negative response to a film promoting Homelander's godhood. Once Frenchie and Sage successfully stabilize Kimiko's radiation treatment, Homelander breaks into their base and kills Frenchie. This episode seems to be quite controversial, and for good reason, because a major character dies, the season suddenly shifts into a completely new tone, and the story gets a completely new tempo. I will say though, I don't think that Frenchie's death was what really impacted the ratings for this episode. Most of my timeline was people just cheering when it happened. So I mean, yeah, at least we don't have to listen to an IDF soldier butchering a French accent anymore, so there's that. I will say though, using his death solely for the purpose of introducing an inner conflict for Kimiko for just the final episode, is kind of underwhelming. Like, it just feels like they're trying to actively pad out the runtime of the finale because they don't have enough to put into it. I think this episode has by far the worst pacing of the entire season, and it shakes up the story in a way that made the finale way worse. Like, a lot of these things should have happened earlier, but instead we get Homelander God arc. That is fully rushed. That happens in like 3 episodes and that's it. Like, a lot of his decisions would have made more sense if he had more time to develop this God complex, but instead it just kind of happens. You know, it just kind of spawns into his head and that's it. It's suddenly there and he has a God complex. Also, the whole subplot of giving Kimiko's the power of Soldier Boy with his radiation beam is very funny because this just looks like the writers backed themselves into a corner that they didn't necessarily know how to get out of. And they just came up with this. It feels like a very random idea, honestly. And I mean, its execution is definitely something. The finale of the season is titled Blood and Bone. The boys bury Frenchie whilst Homelander prepares a national address proclaiming his divinity from the Oval Office. After provoking Kimiko into testing her power on her, Sage loses her powers and leaves the boys to live an ordinary life. With Ashley's help, the boys get into the White House. Annie flies off to fight with the Deep, whilst Huey and MM lure O-Father away so Butcher and Kimiko can kill Homelander. O-Father and the Deep die very quickly, and that all happens whilst Ryan flies in to help Butcher in restraining Homelander, enabling Kimiko to blast them all and take their powers away. A now powerless Homelander begs for his life, but Butcher kills him. Ashley is impeached and Edgar once again becomes Vault's CEO. That's how you know the show is fictional, because they impeached their president and actually she is no longer in power. Ryan rejects Butcher, who later also discovers that his dog, Terror, died. Truly the most tragic death of the entire show. Butcher goes to Vault's tower so that he can release the virus, but he ends up getting killed by Huey before he can do so. After the boys disband, MM renews his marriage vows and takes in Ryan. And Kimiko goes to France, and Huey and Annie are planning to start a family. This finale is aggressively mid. It's aggressively okay, but also I understand why many people didn't like it. But to me, this was not even the worst episode of the season, yet at the time of me filming this episode sits at 5.3 on IMDb after getting review bombed, because these numbers are not natural. Like, they literally double from episode 7 to episode 8. So that's how you know something fishy is going on here. This finale and the reaction to it really exposed some people, in my opinion. Like, tell me why people were complaining about Homelander being pathetic after his powers goes away. Like, that is the point. The point of this show was to kill Homelander all along. So I guess the show should end with Homelander getting killed. And y'all are surprised about that? The Deep's death was also received similarly, which confused me even more. Like, his entire character is pathetic. That's what he is. He is meant to be there, to be pathetic. He literally outright says no to character development during that fight with Starlight, but some people still call him the peak. Get away from me. Stay away, 10 meters at least. Let's practice social distancing for a second. The fight scenes were just so boring this episode. Annie fucks off to kill the Deep, who is the least threatening soup, especially at this point. Like, he's probably the least threatening soup in the entire show. He has nothing right now because even the fish are not gonna listen to him. Her fight with the Deep is kind of boring, and she almost doesn't fight him because she just throws him into the water and then suddenly he just dies. The fight with O-Father, barely a fight, really. He's never really that much of a threat. He literally like tries to attack him twice, I believe, and then he just is gone. And then the one with Homelander is underwhelming enough so that we have time for Kimiko to hallucinate her dead boyfriend. It's literally just him trying to escape the entire time. He's not fighting to actually end it once and for all. He's a coward in that fight, and it just kind of brings the whole mood down. Like, I wanted more from him. I kind of wanted him to like at least try and fight. Instead, the entire time, all they're doing is trying to stop him from escaping. As I previously mentioned, Kimiko's story in this episode is just pointless, and it ends with her seeing Frenchie, who tells her that she can do it. She can blast these people. Like, okay, sure, whatever. I guess he was speaking from experience, probably. I also think Butcher's ending, whilst fitting for him, was kind of weird. Like, ultimately, this guy is just homicidal and wants to kill all soups. I was delusional enough to think that the virus plot would get resolved otherwise, but instead it got resolved because Huey shot Butcher after Butcher saw the face of his brother in Huey. Okay, sure, whatever. That was a little weird for me. Although, one character ending that I did end up liking was Ryan and MM. These two deserve the world, and I'm so happy that Mother's Milk becomes his adopted dad. Like, someone on Twitter compared this to the West family and the CW's Flash, and that made me giggle so much, and I also just love it. If anyone deserves to have a full happy ending like this, it's these two, and maybe Huey and Annie as well. I think the season started better than it ended. It definitely had highlights though, especially season 4. That is probably one of my favorite episodes of the entire franchise, actually. There were definitely big issues with the way that the season was written, and we're gonna talk about that in a second. But I also think another issue that we need to take into account was the expectations that people came with into this season. Some folks came into the season with quite delusional expectations of what was going to happen, and when that didn't get fulfilled, they started throwing hissy fits. So yeah, let's talk about the criticism against The Boys season 5.
Stupid people who think they're smart make me want to eat my own shit.
First of all, a lot of criticism came from right-wing folks, conservatives, or just in general brain-dead people who thought Homelander was like the toughest guy ever and didn't like the fact that outside of his powers, he's basically just a pathetic coward. I mean, we've known this, but it seems not everybody did. It's crazy to me that you can watch the show up until season 5 and not realize that it's actually parodying a lot of real life situations and figures. The amount of people that got upset over Homelander getting his shit wrecked in that finale truly amazes me. Like, for fuck's sake, Elon Musk, of all people, was coke-ranting on Twitter over this. He said, and I quote, "I didn't watch the show, to be honest. Here's the second best review. Kripke probably got flack from his wife's boyfriend for Homelander being used in based memes and had to write that ending as a groveling apology." You can tell he thought this was hilarious when he wrote this, but to me this is like a primary school level of a read. He was like, ooh, burn. And also, you didn't watch the show apparently, so why are you commenting on its ending? Like, you swear you're not a fan of it, but your activity speaks otherwise. I just know he'd be listening to the Deeps podcast if it was real. Disgusting. A lot of the criticism went also towards the actors, specifically 2 of them. Erin Moriarty got a lot of shit from the so-called fans of this show for the way she looked and for the way that she performed in the season. I think people were unreasonably harsh on her, especially since she revealed that whilst filming the season, she was battling her Graves' disease, which is an autoimmune disease known for resulting in fatigue and muscle weakness. That is completely outside of her control, and while it clearly affected her performance, she still gave it her all, and I think we should give her more grace after all of this. The second one, though, is definitely harder to defend, and I'm not even gonna attempt doing that. A lot of people this season found out about who Tomer Capone is and the fact that he is an Israeli actor who also served in the IDF. Which, interesting choice, isn't it? I've never read the comics of The Boys, but from my research, I know that the character of Frenchie in the comics is French-Algerian. So why not cast someone who is, I don't know, like, let's say French, or at least can speak French? There are so many wonderful French-speaking actors everywhere, and you choose an Israeli IDF soldier, which is like the last thing that this role needed. Instead, you chose a guy whose French accent sounds like he's actively making fun of the French, and not in a good way. This show obviously has other ridiculous accents. I mean, Butcher, hello. But the difference is, that one is funny. This one just sounds like he's been learning French for like 2 weeks and now has to talk in it. But the bigger problem to me is how this casting really shows how the political commentary of The Boys is clearly imperfect. They make fun of Christians, politicians, conservatives, lately even podcasters, but then Zionists aren't ever a topic. And then when it comes to Muslim characters, we get one of them. Exactly one. His name is Naqib, and his power, let me read you what his power is. Self-fucking detonation. So in ways, The Boys is a great political satire, but then it ignores problems that are very closely related to what they're talking about, and they also hire an IDF soldier for a role of a French person. Like, that is a horrible look. But okay, I guess moving on, the fight scenes were definitely a problem this season. This will be quick. I thought that most of them were very underwhelming. Starlight versus Oh Father, The Deep versus Black Noir, Homelander killing Firecracker, like poor choreography. It's almost like some of them weren't planned ahead of time, so they just had to think of something in order to avoid them. The only fight scene this season that actually was like pretty cool to watch was Maverick versus Huey. That one is cool, mostly just because of how much Jack Quaid put into that scene. Another thing I feel like I have to mention in this section is the character writing and plot holes, and specifically how the cast responded to them. If your cast is actively engaging with content, criticizing and making fun of your show, something is wrong. There are several instances of this, actually. These people did not give a fuck, and I kind of respect them for that. Like, for example, you had Laz Alonso, who plays Mother's Milk, who reposted a full-on reel about the Soldier Boy problem in The Boys. And also you had Carl Urban apparently liking a video that was titled "New Episode of The Boys Doesn't Make Sense." Some actors have defended the show on the other hand. Like, for example, Anthony Starr, who of course plays Homelander, who commented on a post that complained about the wrapping up of plots being messy this season and said, "Life is messy, nothing ends up tidy," which I actually don't know if that's a good defense or if that's meant to be a defense, because like actually this could be taken a few different ways, but still. And I mean, I do think that they are correct, because like the character writing in the show got really, really bad. For instance, Huey, the main character of the show. He's been the main character since season 1, and he still remains the main character, even though he is the definition of useless. He does nothing in this show anymore. Nothing. At least in the past, he had like interesting relationships with like Victoria, you know? He actually matters somehow. His motivation now is just, oh yeah, we have to do it. Like, he has no stakes in the actual story. He is quite literally irrelevant. His presence there doesn't change anything. Like, you could just write him out of the show and nothing changes. And I mean, I just talked about how much they failed Kimiko. I think that's self-explanatory. Another thing is definitely that The Boys writers have run out of jokes and ideas. I mean, part of why this show gained so much traction is because of how out there it was with its humor. They tried to continue that in season 5, but it just doesn't stick the same. Most jokes are just sex jokes. And they are, for the most part, very unfunny. Their lack of ideas, especially when it comes to characters, I think would be the most visible when we talk about the powers that these soups actually receive. In these newer seasons of The Boys, there are 3 types of powers that a soup can have. You're either very durable, can fly, and you're super strong. Then you can have some like mental, psychic stuff that you can do. And then you get the penis and ass related powers. There's the guy with the huge dick. There's that guy who basically eats earth and then shits it out. There's that old man in the retirement home for soups who has very long balls. The powers have gotten so boring and just unimpressive. There was even that one post on Twitter going around a couple days ago, and I mean, I agree with it. These guys all basically have the same powers. Some of them are also Gen V characters, but overall, I think the characters from Gen V seem to have more interesting powers, because I mean, think of Jordan, or think of Marie, or even Kate. Although there was also that one girl who, if I remember correctly, I think it was in season 2, I think she could control her pubic hair. So I guess maybe Gen V isn't completely safe from that. The other example of how they've run out of ideas is the fact that this season constantly feels like they had too many episodes and somehow had to fill them with content. Because of that, we get the virus plot, we get a V1 plot, then suddenly Homelander is immortal, so we have to start making shit up in order to kill him. Every episode just feels like the characters have been thrown a very manufactured problem that complicates their plan further. First, we need to test the virus, but oh no, it doesn't completely work because Soldier Boy doesn't die. So then we have to go on another quest to find out why. Then we go on another quest to find the V1. Then another quest because the previous one didn't work. And now we failed to find the V1. So we have to go on another quest to do something in the studio because Father is being suspicious in there. So we're just going to go there. Like realistically, this season could have just been 4 episodes. That plot can easily be shortened and nothing changes. And to add to that, they pad the runtime with unasked for Soldier Boy content, even though they had an easy get out of jail card right there with several characters they could have thrown in here to make the story more interesting. And on that note, the characters we continue to see, the ones we lost, and the Gen V characters. What is going on? So many of these characters that are remaining in this final season are useless and are not even really that fun to watch. Like, I get why, for example, I don't know, the Deep is still here somewhat, but the fact that he outlives A-Train despite not doing anything for literally the entire season is crazy. And listen, I love Chase Crawford. He is insanely good in this role. Genuinely one of my favorite acting performances in the entire show, but he does nothing the entire season. And then he gets this manufactured beef with Noir and then just dies. How interesting. Oh yeah, amazing. I guess Karma got him, which is fun. Yeah, sure. But he's just completely uninteresting to me. And then you bring back characters that are just not needed here. Why is Soldier Boy here? Why is he getting all this screen time? Well, I mean, we know why. Give me a second, I'll get there. But he steals the screen time from so many more interesting and important characters. And that is all basically for nothing because the moment Homelander gets the V1, Soldier Boy is just removed from the plot. He's just not there anymore. They give him an entire season of screen time just to then lock him up again and give 1 hour, one remaining hour of the show to the rest of the characters that they spent the entire season neglecting. I think the most atrocious example of this is Ryan. He barely gets to do anything despite being Homelander's son for fuck's sake, and also being repeatedly set up as the person that could potentially kill him. He's barely in the season despite being easily the character with most narrative potential. And then I also think that some of the characters they've gotten rid of could have made the season more interesting. Like, imagine if Victoria Newman was still here. That would be so interesting, and I actually think she could have brought so much to the season. Or imagine if, for example, A-Train survived the premiere. Then the Deep could maybe have more importance in the season, for example. And don't even get me started on the Gen V characters because, I mean, Mary gets literally set up to be the one person that could overpower Homelander, and she appears twice this season. First, Starlight tells her and Jordan to basically just fuck off. And the second time, it is to transport the saved people from the studio to a different place. And not to kill Homelander, despite the fact that they literally outright said to just... Like, the math isn't mathing. 2 + 2 should equal 4, not 5. And it's not even the fact that she doesn't get utilized enough. It's the fact that all of these characters from Gen V don't get utilized practically at all. Think of how incredible this season could have been if Kate was still around. Or if Jordan got to do something. You gave them 2 seasons, which the first one was very well received, the second one slightly less. I actually watched the second season months after it came out because I wasn't aware that it was released. The marketing campaign for it was just shit. And I only found out about it through a TikTok comment section because somebody posted a TikTok talking about Gen V and I was like, okay, sure, I'm going to watch it. And I looked into the comment section and people were like, oh my God, I didn't know season 2 came out. I'm like, season 2? Since when is there a season 2? And then I looked on Prime. I'm like, oh, hello. I guess I know what I'm doing tonight. It wasn't bad, in my opinion. I thought it was just okay. It was mid. Kind of similarly to season 5, although I do think that season 5 was worse than season 2 of Gen V. But they got cancelled after that second season, so we're not gonna see these characters again. And they didn't get much to work with here, so you just spent 2 seasons building up these characters for basically nothing. That was such an easy fix to the season, and if applied, it would fix a lot of the narrative issues that the season has. And also the nerve to neglect all of these characters like that in the season that was fully just used as one big advertisement for a prequel show to The Boys is disrespectful as shit. Oh, and speaking of that prequel. VOT Rising. Who the fuck asked for a prequel to The Boys called VOT Rising that would tell the story of the origins of VOT? I know I didn't. And honestly, I don't think I'm gonna watch it. Especially after what the sequel cost us, because they spent so much time in season 5 giving us more Soldier Boy content, introducing new characters from his past that are all going to be important in VOT Rising, to the point that it feels like the plot to kill Homelander and everything else just takes a backseat. Not important right now. Look at this cool lore that we have, though, that is going to be important in this new cool spin-off prequel that we're gonna be releasing next year. Focus on that. You know what? It's okay to try and set up a spin-off, a prequel in your show. It's okay. It's allowed. Just do it with skill. Do it with slight subtlety. Maybe don't derail an entire season of television just to promote that. This season, mind you, was meant to conclude every single character arc in The Boys. And it kind of does so, but all of those conclusions are very rushed because most of the time we spent dilly-dallying around with Soldier Boy and learning about his past and people he knew in his past. I don't give a fuck, bro. I don't want to hear it. I don't need that. I really don't give a fuck. There are more important things right now than your fucking backstories with Bombside or whoever else. And there are actually multiple reasons as to why I don't want to watch VOT Rising and likely won't. First of all, The Boys writers have not been doing well lately, which makes me worried about how this show is going to be handled. Season 4 of The Boys was okay. Gen V Season 2 was very mid. And this season it has some highs, but also has some insane lows. So that steadily declining track record of quality makes me think that this show is likely not going to be good. Second of all, I am a petty bitch. Gen V getting cancelled, even though it was undoubtedly the most interesting thing to come out of The Boys universe, hurt me. I was upset. And the fact that they got cancelled, meanwhile, Eric Kripke is over here going full steam into VOT Rising. How dare you leave Gen V like that and just throw it under the bus for your fucking prequel? It just feels like that meme with, with the drowning kid, He's saving VOT Rising, then over here is The Boys, and then at the very bottom is Gen V. That's what Eric Kripke is currently doing. But most importantly, this show will take place in the 1950s, and one of the main characters of this show will be none other than Stormfront. Yay! Yes, you heard it correctly. The Nazi bitch ass that everybody was happy to see gone from the show will be back. This time in 1950s, which is likely going to be her peak racist era. She will be a Nazi bitch regardless, and she will likely be committing hate crimes and being a horrible person, and also will be Soldier Boy's love interest. And you're asking me to watch a TV show with her as the main character? VOT Rising as an idea could be interesting, but if Stormfront, one of the most disliked characters of this entire franchise, is at the forefront of it, I just don't want it. And lastly, I think because of this prequel, The Boys is slowly becoming something that they themselves have made fun of before. They've previously made fun of superhero franchises by having the 7 star in films and giving us glimpses of them, and they were all under the VOT production company. They ridiculed what they are now becoming. This is their 3rd spin-off, if I'm counting correctly, and the title of it actually kind of sounds like a fake movie made in the VOT universe. It's just kind of ironic for The Boys to go out like that, The Boys ended poorly, and I agree with a lot of the criticism against it, as you just saw, but I also do think that some people were exaggerating. As I previously mentioned, this season's finale currently sits at 5.3 at IMDb, despite not being the worst finale to a 5th season released this year. The finale of season 5 of Stranger Things currently sits at a comfortable 7.5, despite being the worst finale I've seen in ages. It is diabolically bad. That entire last season was just a slap in the face. And The Boys season 5 at its lowest, to me, is still better than Stranger Things 5 at its best. I'm sorry, that finale sucked ass so majorly. That's probably the worst finale to a season I've ever seen since I binge watched the entirety of Pretty Little Liars during the pandemic. Because that ending pissed me the fuck off. But this is up there. Like, this is comparable. It just doesn't make sense to me that this is how the numbers look like for these seasons. And mind you, both of these seasons got review bombed. We are talking about the finale to a season that was so bad that it birthed a conspiracy theory that there was a secret final episode that some people still actively believe in. And you think this is comparable to The Boys? You think a show that caused a mass psychosis on the internet with how piss poor its writing was is comparable to this? No. I think partially it's also the difference in audiences, but I just don't see it. The Boys still had some very good moments in season 5. Everything to do with Ashley, Sage being a menace, being the GOAT, Allfather being a very interesting villain, so on and so forth. And aside from that, even if the writing got progressively more shit, this show's ability to produce the most perfect GIFs and memes should be studied. That one scene from, I think it's episode 3 when Homelander sees a divine version of Madeline. That is probably my favorite one, but there's also that gif of him with the Jesus-like thorn crown. And there's also that one when the Deep enters the room and Allfather and Homelander look at him disappointed. Just peak. Not to mention that this show is very current with its commentary. Like, as it was airing, Trump and the current American administrations were actively doing things that the show accidentally referenced without planning to do so. Like, there was that entire thing with Trump portraying himself as Jesus using an AI video, which I talked about before. But there's also the big Homelander statue, which also ended up being true at the time that that episode was released because they made a big gold statue of Trump. This show, regardless of its quality, still remained very current. Actually, it's scary just how current it is. I think this hate train is kind of temporary and people will eventually come around to it and realize that season 5, whilst definitely not good, wasn't that bad either. It's like a mix of many elements, I think. It's the previous greatness of the show, it's expectations of the audiences, it's the narrative potential. But this season, as it is, isn't something that I would call bad. Not when Stranger Things 5 exists. I mean, like, if this is bad, then what is Stranger Things then? I don't know, sound off in the comments below. But now I do actually want to hear from you guys. What do you think? Do you agree with me, or maybe am I slightly delusional in thinking that this season wasn't that bad? Ultimately, I will always hold The Boys very close to my heart, especially the earlier seasons and also the seasons of Gen V that we have. I think this show was kind of revolutionary in a way, and also gave us so many opportunities to have very important discussions about the current state of the world that we live in. I think it's very important, and it shouldn't just be now written off as a show that ended poorly, because its message is very of its time and we should appreciate it more. And also, it was just iconic. Like, this show will remain a phenomenon in pop culture for years to come. Specifically, Anthony Starr as Homelander is, I mentioned that before, that is probably one of the greatest castings of all time. That is like insane levels of performance there. I'm glad that The Boys finally ended, because they could have kept this train chugging for a bit longer, and I was kind of scared of that, which, I mean, they're still kind of doing that because there was going to be that whole prequel, right? But at least The Boys is fully wrapped up. And even though it wasn't the most glamorous ending, I'm happy that we can at least close this book. Thank you so much for watching. If you stuck around till the end, definitely let me know what you thought of the video, and make sure to subscribe to the channel because I post weekly videos. Next week, as most of you know, the gay month is starting, and myself as a queer individual, I feel very much obligated to make more videos that are going to be very much queer focused. Definitely keep an eye out on my YouTube post and on my Twitter, because I'm going to be posting something that you guys will be able to take part in regarding the next video that you will see from me. Also, I will do my best to stick to weekly uploads this June, because June is always my exam season for my summer semester. This year, it should be a little lighter than it was last year. Last year, I basically had to take a whole month off because I was just getting wrecked by these exams, like front to back. But this exam season should be a little bit lighter. So hopefully I'll be able to still upload content for you consistently. And yeah, with that, I'm so excited for next week's video. It's going to be so much fun. And also maybe some of the boys' characters will be mentioned in it. But until then, thank you so much for watching. And thank you so much for sticking around till the end. I love you so much. Take care, and I will see you next week. Bye.